Global Revolution 2011. On December 27, 2008, Israel began the bombardment of Gaza in Operation Cast Lead. Unlike in virtually all other wars, there were no fleeing refugees, because Gaza's 1.5 million residents are imprisoned. Everyone was made to endure 22 days of an assault from the fourth largest military in the world. Among the weapons used were depleted uranium and white phosphorus, all supplied by the United States government courtesy of the US taxpayer. Among the population of Gaza were more than 800,000 children. During this so-called war, President-elect Barack Obama said nothing. Fast forward to June 4, 2009.
The man so many millions of people have been waiting for, the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I am honored to be in the timeless city of Cairo. We meet at a time of great tension between the United States and Muslims around the world. Tension rooted in historical forces that go beyond any current policy debate.
Washington has not joined the critics who accuse Israel of inflicting collective punishment on its besieged population. Meanwhile, the U.S. military aid commitment to Israel continues unabated. The Congress has approved an average $3 billion a year in arms and military financing to Israel over the next 10 years.
And I'm also proud to carry with me the goodwill of the American people and a greeting of peace from Muslim communities in my country. Assalamu alaikum.
White phosphorus shells were used in densely populated areas throughout the impoverished coastal strip. White phosphorus, classified as a chemical weapon, is used to mark enemy targets and to produce smoke for concealing troops' movement. The Israeli military said it used white phosphorus shells only to create smoke screens to allow its ground forces to operate. If particles of ignited white phosphorus land on a person's skin, they burn the flesh to the bone. Toxic phosphoric acid can also be released into wounds, risking...
I've come here to Cairo to seek a new beginning between the United States and Muslims around the world. One based on mutual interest and mutual respect.
Some people are still in pain. This is Baha Gabain, a 15-year-old boy from Jabalia refugee camp before he got injured and burned with Israeli prohibited weapons. This is how he looks now after sustaining severe burns. He says he feels his body is burning even at cold temperature.
There must be a sustained effort to listen to each other, to learn from each other, to respect one another, and to seek common ground. As the Holy Quran tells us, be conscious of God and speak always the truth. Their actions are irreconcilable with the rights of human beings, the progress of nations, and with Islam. The Holy Quran teaches that whoever kills an innocent it is as if he has killed all mankind. Just as Muslims do not fit a crude stereotype, America is not the crude stereotype of a self-interested empire. The United States has been one of the greatest sources of progress that the world has ever known. We were born out of revolution against an empire. We were founded upon the ideal that all are created equal. President Mubarak.
Sayyid al-Rais Barack Obama, I have gone through wars and hostilities and have participated in the quest for peace since the first day of my administration. I have never spared an effort to push it forward, and I still look forward to its success and completion. The efforts to achieve peace between the Palestinians.
So we must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to bequeath to our children and our grandchildren?
We're now joined by Ken O'Keefe, an activist based in Gaza. Mr. O'Keefe, many thanks for joining us here on RT. Now, some experts are saying that these uprisings we're seeing in Egypt at the moment resemble the colour revolutions of the post-Soviet states. Do you think that we're seeing a similar scenario being played out in North Africa?
Well, there is simply no question at all. Wherever you oppress people, wherever you deny them their basic human rights, wherever the iniquity in the distribution of wealth is so perverse as it is in the former Soviet republics, or the former Soviet Union, and also here in North Africa, that people will eventually rise up. And it's promising to see that people have started the process of shedding off their brutal and corrupt, pathetic dictator Mubarak. And in this sense, of course, they're very, very similar. When people reach a certain point, they will rise up.
Now, it's well known that the US sponsored those so-called colour revolutions. If the US proves to also be involved in stirring things up in Egypt, how would they benefit from that?
Well, first off, I wouldn't doubt that the U.S. would plan for all options. And, of course, the U.S. and those secret elements within our governments are always conspiring to commit acts which defy all sorts of logic and perpetuate the power system as it is. So I would not doubt that they have involvement. However, they did not set the man on fire in Tunisia. Mohammed did that himself, and he set off that revolution there. The grievances of the people are legitimate, regardless of any kind of backward dealing, conspiring behind the scenes. If, however, the United States is involved, it wouldn't surprise me, as I've written about in the last day, that this would all be a manipulation and a ploy to justify Israel's launch into Sinai, to take over Sinai as part of the greater Israel project, which those of us who are paying any attention know full well what that's about. So this could be used as a manipulation to support that. Of course, the public proclamations will say one thing, but deep down we know that the real truth is never said publicly. So this is one possibility. But I'm hoping that if that is the case and they're conspiring to make this sort of event happen, that the people will in the end make them regret their devious ways.
Well, one thing we do know is that the latest WikiLeaks cables revealed that the US have been undermining the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, who they'd supported for such a long time. So what do you think was the thinking behind that particular policy?
Well, first off, WikiLeaks has perpetuated all sorts of illusions, including the illusion that Iran is the threat. Iran is not the threat. Israel is the threat. American imperialism is the threat. British complicity and support for those institutions is the threat, not Iran. And WikiLeaks has been instrumental in perpetuating that threat. And also, the so-called leader of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, has marginalized or attempted to ridicule those of us who can see the truth about 9/11. And so I'm not going to buy everything that WikiLeaks produces. In fact, those cables are definitely one means of disinformation that could throw us off track. So I'm not going to give credence to all of the WikiLeaks cables. In fact, we need to really question them seriously.
Okay, well, focusing back now on what we're seeing at the moment in North Africa, instability really has gripped the greater Middle East, hasn't it, ever since that revolt in Tunisia. What further impact do you think all this could have on the wider region?
Well, I think that people are seeing once and for all that despite the military, despite the backing of the American imperial machine, despite all the torture, despite all of the killings, that people rising up together can do anything. Who would have thought that Mubarak would be out? He's out. He's out. He's living on borrowed time, and the people have made that so. So what this is going to do is empower people. And I, for one, have waited a long time, and I must say love and respect to all my brothers and sisters in Tunisia and in Egypt and in the rest of the puppet government states that are not honoring their people. Rise up, and I hope it expands into Europe, because the European people also feel the same types of injustice by their corrupt puppet governments as well. So it's going to have, hopefully, a huge impact, not just on the region, but on the world.
Well, how worried should Europe be that it might see a similar spate of violence there with growing economic stability and immigration on the rise?
Well, let's be clear. The state is the perpetrator of the violence, primarily. The people are not the one perpetuating the violence. They're simply rising up and exercising their rights. And I'm not going to support random acts of violence or violence which we have to think, in case of, say, for instance, in Moscow, where you've had violence, the first suspect should be Israel. Who benefited from that act more than anyone else? Israel would benefit from that, perpetuating the illusion of the war on terror. It's not the people that are committing the violent acts, and those that would commit those types of violent acts are in line or in sync with Al-Qaeda, the fiction, and the CIA and Mossad, and those who benefit from these actions. So it's not the people that are responsible for these things, but Europe should be well bothered and well worried, because they are just as corrupt as the Mubarak regime. Berlusconi, Tony Blair, all of these puppets, corrupt and not representing their people and giving trillions of euros away to the bankers while people are losing their resources, losing their jobs, losing their homes. They should be well worried.
OK, let's move back to the situation now in Egypt. We're on to day 6 of this unrest. The situation's obviously very difficult to predict, but how do you think it's going to go? Can President Mubarak possibly cling on after all this?
Absolutely not. He's living on borrowed time. Mubarak's day is over. But Suleiman, the man that he's appointed to be second in command, has been collaborating, working with the Zionists for a long time, so he will not be tolerated either. Nobody who has any ties to the Zionist conspiracy to commit to Greater Israel or to the American imperial machine, nobody in the Egyptian regime who has had anything to do with that, nor the banking elements which have indebted the Egyptian people to the point that they live on less than $2 a day, none of those people should be tolerated. And El-Baradei is far from being a guarantee. Only the people of Egypt can decide who they want.
OK, Mr. O'Keefe, many thanks for those impassioned words there. Ken O'Keefe, an activist speaking to us from Gaza. Many thanks.
Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're an atheist, you will demand your goddamn rights, and we will have our rights, one way or the other. We will never